Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today we got a special guest for you. My guest is a lightweight from Canada. He's getting ready to fight on the Dana White Contender Series September 2nd. He's taking on Samuel SIlva. He is Mr. Mango. He is Mandel Nallo. Mandel, what's up, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Awesome to have you on the show. Big news. You're fighting on the Contender Series. You're taking on Samuel SIlva. You know, for those who don't know, I mean, you've been around in this world for so long in the world combat sport. You've been doing this stuff, man, before it was cool, you know, dating back 2009. You know, it's kind of crazy. We're looking at the sport now. There's all these shows. Paydays are as big as there ever was. It's so culturally accepted. But we take it back 20 years ago, man. It wasn't too long. People are calling this stuff like human cockfighting. It wasn't legal at every state, every province. You know, people thought it was a wild, wild west. When you first started in the late 2010s, or the 2009, 2010 time, do you remember any amateur fights where you're maybe fighting in bars, outside, mystery opponents? Do you have anything crazy?
Me personally, no. I always had a pretty professional upbringing as a competitor, but I remember watching some shows that were pretty rough. Actually, the first show I ever went to, it was a good show. I think it was a TKO. I'm pretty sure Wonder Boy fought a kickboxing fight on that show before he was ever in the UFC, or even maybe had done an MMA fight. And it was a dingy old bar, and I'm pretty sure smoking was allowed because the upper level was like all smoky. But that was cool. I mean, it's funny, you see those bad MMA movies where like the guy starts out and he's fighting in an underground parking lot or something. And I guess some of the time that did happen. I didn't see too much of it, but yeah, it's definitely, we've come a long way.
Absolutely. You know, one of those fights for you on the amateur scene that stick out is you fought the Montreal Gangster. I mean, you fought Olivier Alban Mercier. You know, is it kind of cool looking back at it now where you saw where his career was, be like, oh, wow, we mixed it up and we're both really young in our careers?
I mean, yeah, we're friends. We trained together at TriStar before he retired, and he's the man. Just seeing what you can do if you don't hang it up too early, you know, like MMA is so skill based, and the beginning of your career is so heavily focused on skill acquisition that like you only really become good, I would say, like 10 years in is when you're like, you know, enough techniques to really handle everybody. So seeing him struggle, and not struggle in the UFC because he did great, but just struggled to compete to his potential, and then just understanding how to do it, and making the money he made. It's you love those stories as a guy who's been in the sport forever.
You know, you mentioned TriStar. Obviously, you've been part of that gym for a very long time. Obviously, Faraz Zahabi, the legendary George St. Pierre over there, Rory McDonald through the years. You know, but a guy that you've always really been friends with is Mr. Ayman Zahabi. Obviously, now really taking off, coming up over a big win against Jose Aldo. What's it been like with you? What's that relationship been with like the TriStar folks over the years?
Yeah, I mean, me and Eamon were like brothers. We were roommates. We were roommates in the dorms, and then we were roommates in our little apartment here in near the gym. And you know, when Eamon was he had a tough two fights. He lost in Madison Square Garden. I was there cornering Joe Duffy for that, and then he had another fight, I think, in Ottawa, where he lost. He just couldn't really get his shots off. He was still overthinking things. And then he fought, I'm pretty sure, on the Apex. And I've never been happier to see somebody win a fight in my life. I definitely teared up. It was truly an amazing experience as a teammate, as a friend. And he's just been keeping the ball rolling. Now he's really coming into his own, and he always wanted to be kind of the general in the gym, and he is leading the charge. The new wave of TriStar, hopefully champions. You know.
You know, it's kind of crazy to see how the MMA scene really is blown up everywhere. But when you look at Canada, I mean, it's really amazing. And, you know, I think a pivotal moment for that was obviously UFC 129. It was George St. Pierre, it was Jake Shields. It was at the time, I think, the biggest arena they've been at in North America. It was the Sky Dome. It was 55,000 people. Back then, did you know that fight, that moment, did you think that would change the landscape of MMA in Canada?
To me, because I was in Montreal for so long, I didn't really understand that in Ontario things were different. Like I remember seeing George fight. It must have been Nick Diaz. No, it wasn't Nick. It was Carlos Condit at the Bell Center. So to me, like MMA is accepted and cool all over Canada. But then trying to fight in Ontario is when I realized, like, oh no, it's not at all. And I guess that did open up some of the doors. And I mean, the Ontario Commission is still very difficult to work with in certain regards. So yeah, it definitely was a huge moment. The moment I remember from that card was Rory jumping on the side of the cage and flexing. I feel like that's one of like as a Canadian MMA fan, that's one of the most iconic pictures ever taken.
You know, so many people are watching mixed martial arts in this day and age. They're watching the UFC almost every single weekend. They see the big names. They saw the GSPs. You know, they see the Habibs. They see Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira, and they see the fame, the glory, the fortune of it. A lot of people don't realize, man, being a professional fighter is one of the toughest things you're ever going to do. You know, when you're battling on the regional scene, a lot of guys kind of need a 9-to-5 job because you're not making millions of dollars fighting on the regional scene. You stay up late, you wake up early, you miss birthdays, weddings, Thanksgivings, dinners, everything. You've probably missed it pursuing this career. Just maybe to be in the lucky 1% who even gets an opportunity to maybe fight in the Contender or the UFC or the PFL or run the shows like that. You've been doing this for a very long time. You're on the doorstep fighting in the world's biggest MMA promotion. What's made you want to stick through this
long? First of all, while that all that is true, the one thing that underpins all that is that if you actually enjoy training, then the meat, you know, the real sustaining portion of the job is the best thing of all time. Like, I love being in the gym, getting better, learning technique, and training with my friends. So like that's all stuff that I can handle. The difficult stuff that, you know, yeah, like being broke is like a requisite for as an MMA fighter. And missing, like not being able to plan your life is the other big thing. Like the past, since I got kicked out of Bellator, I guess I didn't get kicked out, but I just, it was a whole thing with the shakeup and the sale to PFL. Since that happened, like you just can't plan your life because like there might be some short notice fight and I've got to cancel plans. I remember it was last year or 2 years ago, there was an opportunity that came up in Mexico, and I missed my son's first birthday for that show. You know, just because like I need a fight, and there's a fight on offer, and fights don't come around that often, especially with a guy with my reputation. So like, yeah, it does come with the downsides too. But what keeps you with it is the day to day. Like I get to hang around the best people and become better at the thing I love to do every day.
Do you remember where you were when you got the phone call that you were going to be fighting on the Contender?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was at home in Toronto. I had just put my 2 kids to bed, and my manager called me. And honestly, because it was maybe a week after the Montreal show in Canada, the Bell Center. So I was like half expecting to get the short notice call to fight Benoit Saint Denis. So when I got called for the Contender Series, I was like, oh, okay, nice. Like at least it's something. So I was excited, but I was also like, okay, like, and I think I've deserved a shot at the big show for a while. So I wasn't like calling my mom or anything. I was like, oh, nice.
So you're going to take on September 2nd. You're taking on Samuel SIlva, you know, a guy who's really been doing big things as of late, went over to Cage Warriors, took out Hardwick, became the champion over there. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
I think this is a cool matchup. Like, I think the Contender, the way they set up fights is they'll either get a big A side against a guy that that guy can really showcase his skills against, or they'll get 2 really evenly matched high level guys. And I think this falls into the latter category of 2 guys that like have been right on the cusp, probably are UFC level for the past, you know, 5 years, and now we're getting a shot at each other. So like we get to prove that we're of that caliber. And he's he's a guy that's not afraid of a fight. You know, I think that there would be nothing more difficult than fighting a guy who is like a Marab type or a Evlev type, where like he just really wants to wrestle you. Like, while Contender Series is a fight first and foremost, it's also a job interview. So like, you're not really going to look your best sprawling takedowns and being worried about that the whole time. And this guy is a guy that will allow me to showcase what I can do. So we're happy with it.
Absolutely. You know, you mentioned you find this one in the Apex. One thing I do love about the Contender series, it's just such a different environment than any other fight. I mean, there's no walkout music. You go in there, there's not much time. You start fighting. There's very limited people in attendance. It's really quiet. You can hear the communication from the corner so perfectly. Do you like that type of atmosphere?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a lot more like a spar. It just means a lot more, but like in terms of your environment, it's a lot more like a spar. So I think that will make it'll either throw some people off or allow them to be more themselves. So I think it's cool. I think any opportunity to get guys on the level to the big show is important. I think this is a great resource for fighters. And anything to keep things moving. You know, the worst thing that happens to fighters is no news. Do you know how many times a fighter gets asked, "Hey, when are you fighting next? Hey, any fight news?" I would have let everybody know if I was fighting. You know, like so. Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and it's a really a service to the MMA community.
You know, in my opinion, man, you're one of the most entertaining guys coming out of Canada. You don't know how to go backwards, man. You go forward, you put a lot of pressure. You're a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. You're very deadly on the ground. We've seen you pick up multiple naked chokes. We've seen you land super punch KOs. You're doing this in a smaller cage in the Apex. Do you feel like that goes to your advantage?
Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, anything that brings more action, and I've been fighting on more regional shows of late, so like I'm used to a tighter cage anyways. It'll still be roomier than some of the cages I fought in. I fought in some real phone boxes. So no, for sure, anything that's going to kind of accentuate a little more up close action is good.
How much pride do you take in your fighting style?
Um, Honestly, a lot. Like that is the culmination of my work, right? So it's the only chance I get to showcase, you know, over a decade of toil. So it has to be the thing that I take the most pride in when it comes to my job. And I think I've never had a fight. I've never had anybody watch my fight that doesn't agree that I have some element of magnetism when it comes to my abilities in there. And that's something that I think is lucky, honestly, because I'm not too exuberant or sensational outside of the cage, and it's really in there that I get to show that side of myself.
Well, this is going to be your first time fighting on a UFC branded show. I mean, you have fought on big shows. Obviously, you fought on Bellator before. Having that, the experience of, you know, fighting in front of a lot of people, media, the lights, televised shows, does that kind of bring a little more sense of comfort going into this?
It's been a while, but yeah, for sure. You know, you definitely, there is, I think, who was it? I think Patchy Mix had a fight right in his last UFC fight. Actually, Patchy Mix and Pitbull, they both had fights, and there is something to be said about entering the UFC and dealing with the pressure that comes along with it. I mean, it is the big show in everybody's eyes. When I was fighting in Bellator, the amount of people that asked me, "Hey, why don't you go to the UFC?" You know, like it is ubiquitous with the sport MMA. So anything to get you prepared for that level of competition is a boon to your success. I would assume. And look at a guy like, well, Pitbull just won his second fight because maybe he's got more, you know, time in the cage. And look how much better a guy like who's the guy? RDR. Look how much better he looks now compared to his UFC debut, right? Like there is something to be said for getting your bearings in there.
Do you think that fighting is more mental than it is physical?
No, I mean, I guess so. If you're not physically prepared, then there's no chance. But I think that a great fighter can be diminished by their lack of mental preparedness. And like that's the most amazing thing about George is that I've seen him have bad training camps and I've seen him have good training camps, and nobody would know by his performance in the cage. So it is another factor, but no, I don't think it's more mental. I think that it is maybe it's 50-50. I'm not sure. But having the right mentality in competition and in training definitely is the only way to become a champion in an MMA.
Are you envisioning that moment potentially after the fight? You four other winners sitting in chairs beside you, Dana White looking at you, saying, "Come over here, shake my hand, and get the contract."
Uh, I have thought about that maybe once in the shower, but really the focus is more on visualizing a finish in the cage, and then then it's out of my hands. So I would say any visualization work that's going into this one is fight related.
Dana White has said in the past on the Contender series, he's not out here looking for 30-year-old contenders. Do you really
Yeah,
feel like if you're able to get in there, is this really the time where the journey really starts and you really hit the ground running?
yeah. I think that there's a difference between a 30-year-old that needs work and a fully formed product. Like I think that me getting into the UFC just means they can plug me into any high level fight and I will be able to perform. It's not like they're getting a guy that needs work. Like they sign a lot of guys in their 20s that either will fizzle or they maybe will become world champion down the line, give them 5-6 years. I don't need that time. So that's the difference between me and maybe somebody that he would be talking about in that scenario.
What would it mean for you to find the UFC?
You know, it, I've always said like fighting for money is the job, so it doesn't matter. But there is something to be said for doing it at the highest level. So it would be validating to a degree, and I'm sure, like to me, it's important. But I think to anybody who's a fan of mine or anybody who uh, doesn't quite understand me so well, it would like anybody who's DMing me on Instagram and like has followed my career, they would be like, "Ha! I told you guys," So that it would be nice to do it for those guys.
The life and journey for any MMA fighter. I mean, it's a roller coaster. There's highs, there's lows. You sacrifice so much, as we talked about earlier. You overcome different obstacles. What do you want your kids to take away from this journey?
Yeah, my kids. I mean, me and Eamon have spoken about it. Just effort. Like I don't really care what they do as long as it's sensible. But like maximum effort and and not being not accepting like, oh, I will do 80% of the work because that 20% saves me from an embarrassment. Like give yourself 100% effort, try your best, and that's what I want them to know is like I did my best. If I fail, it's okay because I did my very best and I tried my hardest, and there was nothing else I couldn't have done. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but that's like what makes a successful career in anything. So that's the main thing.
In this day and age, there's so many people watching the sport. Social media has become a big part of the sport. We're really starting to see mixed martial arts get a personality and entertainment driven element added to it. With that comes the term the casual fan. So, first off, these fans are great for the sport. We need as many eyeballs as we can on it. But sometimes if you go to Boston Pizza, you might be watching the fight. You might hear someone say, twist them and the you know what, have some crazy comments, some crazy posts on Facebook. Overall, what do you make of all this stuff? Do you get a laugh out of any of it?
Yeah, when I was younger, it would annoy me a lot more when somebody would be talking about a fighter that I respect in a disrespectful way. And I guess it probably, it probably still does, but I understand where they're coming from. If I watch sports, I'd probably do the same thing. I don't know. Actually, I probably wouldn't. I think that it's gotten a lot more. That's just the way the internet is. People are just more disrespectful generally. There's less reverence for greatness and attempts at greatness. There's less reverence for somebody trying than there is for somebody who's just doing it nonchalantly. Like, I think that celebrity has been lowered to the degree that, like, somebody who just talks to a screen in their living room is the same level of effort as a guy who trains his heart out and goes and boxes or whatever. So I think that's just the way things are. And as a fighter, all we can do is interface with the people that are doing a good job trying to understand. And I mean, look, I'm an enjoyer of MMA guru, and I I get it. I think that there is space for that as well. But I think he does it better than the copycats. I think the guys that copy him don't understand that he has true love for the sport, and that there are a lot of guys that copy him that just trash fighters.
One thing I love about TriStar is, honestly, I think all those fighters really embody what it is to be a true martial artist. From your point of view, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
Yeah, I guess that's the identity. We were talking about it earlier today. Like, that's why you don't do steroids, even though a lot of guys in the sport do. That's why you focus on technique and not just being a meathead and running through a bunch of drills to make you tired. Like, we hopefully will leave a positive impact on the entire sport of MMA, and like anybody we interact with in the gym will have been better for at least learning a class from me or interacting with me as a training partner. But it's just like going through life with that level of appreciation for your craft is, to me, what it's all about.
All right, before I let you go here, I want to run by some big UFC fights coming up. I want to get your predictions. We got a big middleweight championship contest just in 2 weeks. We got Dricus Du Plessis defending the strap against Khamzat Chimaev. Who wins that one?
Hard to go against the African Rhino. He's probably my favorite fighter right now. I think, even though I'm a guy that likes a lot of finesse, I think he is underappreciated, and the memes around Dricus do not show him enough respect. He is, as a fighter, if you watch him fight, you understand how hard he is to beat. So, and he's only ever been beat once. So he's amazing, and I would pick him, I think, just as a fan.
Another big one coming up. We got Silva. He's fighting Diego Lopez. What a fight. Who do you got there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, those guys are amazing. I got to give it to probably Silva. He is crazy. I mean, look, maybe Bryce Mitchell is just undersized for the division or something, but that's nuts. Like, Bryce Mitchell took down Ilya, that everybody thinks is like, oh my God, Ilya is unbeatable. He was letting Bryce Mitchell on the leg and then defending the takedown easily and smoking him, and he guillotined him. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense, that guy. That guy's got sick power, looks like good wrestling, good cardio. I don't know. I don't even know. So I pick him, even though I like both guys, yeah.
We got a couple new ones that just got announced that are pretty big. We got Merab Dvalishvili taking on Corey Sandhagen. Who wins that one?
As a fan of, I've never met Corey, but I'm a friend of Ryan Hall, and I know they work together well. I'm going to say that Corey pulls it out with some ground technique that that maybe he twists up Merab's knee or something. But that's a sick fight, and I'm glad Corey's getting his shot. It's nice to see a guy that kept his head down and just kept winning fights get rewarded for that.
All right, the last one, we got a big rematch, 205 division. We got Alex Pereira looking to get that belt back against Magomed Ankalaev. Who wins that?
Is that announced?
That is announced, yes.
Oh my goodness. You have to go with Ankalaev, unfortunately. Not to say I don't know either guy, but Alex Pereira was truly a special character in the sport for his era. But unless the time off has done him some good, I can't see the fight going better for him this time around. He does always have the chance to score a knockout, but Look, maybe he had too much mileage. He was his run was nuts. He was fighting every 2 months, it felt like, and then when he wasn't fighting, he was sparring some heavyweight Korean as hard as possible on Instagram. Like, so maybe maybe he'll do better. Look, as a fan, I'm going to say Pereira, but don't bet on it.
We just mentioned some of the big marquee names in the sport right now. Through your career, you've trained with some of the biggest names in the sport. When you look at the big fights, the big guys, do you get motivation off of them? Do any of them inspire you?
Yeah, those are like but like watching my friends, I think is truly inspiring. I think watching Arnold fight Merab was, no, not Merab, Evloev. I thought that was an inspiring performance. Like, Arnold's not known as a wrestler, and to me, in my eyes, he won that fight and defended every single wrestling exchange. And if it wasn't for the weird reffing, I thought Arnold pulled that out. And seeing him put in an amazing amount of work in the gym to do exactly what he did, I thought was impressive. Watching Eamon fight Jose Aldo and, be on the receiving end of that soccer kick, that's legendary. I watched Jose Aldo do that to people when I was a teenager, and Eamon recovered from that and won. That was inspiring. But in terms of other guys, I would just say, yeah, watching the top of the sport always makes you better. I think that's something that's important to do.
Do you get more nervous watching guys like Eamon fight than you actually going out there and doing it?
Of course. I mean, because you have a way to channel those nerves when it's you, whereas when it's a friend, all you can do is sit on your couch and shake, I guess. So yeah, it is a worse feeling watching your friend fight, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Mandel, last question for you, my friend. In the perfect world, what is the outcome September 2nd when you find the Dana White Contender Series against Samuel SIlva?
An amazing win, something spinning, something sensational, probably a KO. That's what they like. And then they tell me, hey, you have a UFC contract. And I say, October 18th, Vancouver. Let me go to my birthplace and do it again over there. And then I get, a good opponent on that show. That would be the dream. And that's what I'm planning on doing.
Absolutely. Well, Mandel, man, thank you so much for making time for me. I know you have a busy training camp right now. We're not too far away from the contest, but I wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely. That's it for us tonight. I am Carl Prusa. He is Mango. He is Mr. Mandel Nallo. Watch from September 2nd, Dana White Contender Series, taking on Samuel SIlva. Take care, fight fans.